Hi everybody. In this video, we're going to continue our exploration of how to query a single table in an SQL database. We'll learn how to arrange the results in a particular order. For example, we might want to have an alphabetical list of actors, or we might want to order cities by population. We'll learn how to limit the number of rows returned in a result. This will enable us to get things like the top 10 cities based on population. We'll learn some summary statistics, such as how to get an average, how to count the number of occurrences of something, how to get the min and max values. For example, we'll learn how to determine what the average tomato rating is of all movies that Samuel L. Jackson has been in, or how many movies has Robert Downey been in. Next, we'll learn how to group results. In combination with summary statistics, this will enable us to get what the average tomato rating is of every actor in the database. So group the whole database by actor, and then within that group of entries for the actor, determine the average. Next, we'll look at a simple thing, column aliases, so how to rename columns. And finally, we'll look at between, not, and in. These are just some syntactic sugar. They don't improve the expressive power we have, but they just make writing queries a lot easier. So let's get started. So suppose we want an alphabetical list of movies in our database. And let me go into PSQL. And now let me change to that tomatoes database that we've been using. If you're unfamiliar with it, just go back to the previous video. And just to remind us what that actors table looks like, let's take a look at it. So it has columns for ID, last name, first name, role that actor was played, the movie title, the tomato rating, the runtime, and the year. So we're interested in that movie title, just called movie. So let's just start with something simple. And here we get the results, and we see that there's repetitions of movies because there's an entry for each pair of actor and movie. So there were 4 actors in our database that were in the movie Iron Man 2. So we learned we can get rid of those by using that word distinct. So let's go ahead and do that. And there we have 1 entry per movie. And now let's see if we can order it alphabetically by the movie. And that's simply by just adding order by, and then what we want to order by, in this case, by the movie column. And now we have a nicely ordered alphabetical list of movies. Next, suppose we want the cities in the U.S. ordered by population, so the name, the state that city's in, and the population of those cities. So for that, we're going to change it to the world database. And now let's just take a look at that city table to see what it looks like. And so we have the ID column, the name of the city, the country code, so USA in our case that we're interested in, the district, which holds the state information for states in the US, and the population. So we want the name, we want the district, and the population from city. And here we want to limit it to those in the United States. So we say where country code equals USA. And now we'd like to order it by population. So we get a nicely ordered list. In this case, it starts at the lowest population that's in our database, which is Charleston, South Carolina at 89,000 people, and goes on. So it gets larger and larger. Suppose we want to order it the other way. So we want to see the biggest cities, the cities with the largest population first. For that, we just add the keyword DESC, which stands for descending. So we want to order by population descending. So here we get that list. So we have New York at the city with the largest population, which is 8 million. Los Angeles is number 2, and on as the list progresses. So we've seen descending. Just for completeness sake, we can also add ASC for ascending, but that's a default value, so we don't really need it. But we see we get the same results. So this is the template for ordering results. We just write the words order by, the column names we want it ordered by, and whether we want ascending or descending. If we leave it blank, it's by default ascending. Suppose we want an alphabetical list of actors in our database. Let me change into tomatoes. And let's get that list of actors. So And remember, there can be multiple rows for each actor, so we'd like to use that word distinct. And we just want to order by So here we get that alphabetical list of actors. So first ordered by last name, and then within each last name, it's ordered alphabetically by first name. Let me just explain that a bit more. So here's the query we use. Select distinct first name, last name from actors, order by last name, first name. And let me just explain that a bit. So we say order by last name, so that's the first entry, first column mentioned after order by, and so we first order by the last name. So you see that last name column is ordered alphabetically. But now we have some repeats of last names. So we have 3 blacks here. That's where that second column comes in. So within each last name group, we order by the first name. And that's where we get this Jack comes before Karen and Karen comes before Shane. So we get this alphabetical ordering within black, based on first name. Suppose we want the top 10 cities in the U.S. based on population, ordered by population. So this is going to be a slight variation of what we just learned. Let me change into world. So I'm going to select the name of the city, the district or the state that it was in the population, from city, where and here we've done this already. We've ordered by population descending. And now here's where I get the top 10. So I can write this word limit, so that will return 10 elements. So if I say limit 10, that'll return just 10 rows. So here I get that. So I get the top 10 entries. Let's suppose I just wanted the top entry. That's simple enough. I just say limit 1 and get the top entry. So limit limits how many results are returned. Sweet. Let's say we want the top 5 movies based on tomato rating ordered by the rating. So we want the movie name and the tomato rating. That should be simple because it's just pretty identical to what we just did. Let me change into tomato. And so we want the top 5 movies based on their tomato rating. So we want to select, and we want the movie. Let's say we also want the year because there's the same movie title has been produced in multiple years. So select movie, year, and its T rating from actors. Order by T rating, limit 5. So I get repeats here, and I'm hoping you'll think, hey, I know how to fix that. We need to add that word distinct. And there we get it. So we get The Avengers is the lowest T-rated movie. The House of a Thousand Corpses gets only a 19 tomato rating. But what we running was the top ones. So as you may already know, we're going to add that keyword DESC for descending. And here, these should be the highest rated ones, but we're getting no T rating. And here's the reason. There's some entries in our database that have a null T rating, right? Some of these movies have not, this 1974 Wonder Woman has not been rated. So we would like to eliminate those, all those entries that have a T rating of null. And again, I'm hoping that you know, hey, I know how to do that. And let's go ahead and do that. So that would be here from actors, and we're going to add a where clause. Whoops, I screwed up. Let me just back up here. And then I'm going to add a where. And here's where I'm going to say T rating is not null. And there I get them. So we have My Days of Mercy has a T rating of 100, Wonder Woman's Next at 98, and we get Black Panther Avengers at 97, and Catch Me If You Can 95. So that's good. So we're learning how to use things we've already learned in the previous video, and we're just kind of reinforcing what we're doing. So that's kind of a good thing to do. Now let's say we want to learn what the longest movie is in our database. And as just a reminder, let's describe that table, that actors tables. And we have that runtime column, so that's going to have the length in minutes of how long that movie is. So I want the longest movie. Let's say I want the movie, the year, and then that runtime. And I'm going to order it by the runtime descending. And I just want the one longest one, so I'm going to do a limit of 1. And here we have that Wonder Woman from 1984, which has no runtime. And we just learned how to fix that. We learned that we have to get rid of those null values. So let's do that. From actors, where runtime is not null. And here we get Avengers Endgame being 182 minutes long. So just to recap, we learned how to use distinct in the last video. We learned how to do order by. We can do order by default, list things in ascending order. We can explicitly say what order to put in by using ASC for ascending or DESC for descending. And we learned how to limit our results. The next thing I'd like to cover is some summary statistics. So these are things like, suppose we want the average of something. So to get the average of a return column, we'd use the AVG keyword. To add up all the values that are in some column, we use sum. Just to count how many occurrences are returned, we'd use count. And we can use min, max, and there's many others. So let's give that a shot. Let's say we want to know how many cities there are in our database. And I'm just going to back up to that summary statistics and just have a look at this and see which one of these might apply. Is it average, sum, count, min, or max? Well, now I'm in the world database, and I hope you already figured this. It's going to be count. In this case, I can return all the columns of my value. So there's 4,079 cities in our database. Let's say we want to know how many of those are in the United States. So we select, count, and there's 274 cities in the United States. So we've used this keyword count just to count the values in a particular column or in a particular returned result, in this case, everything. In this case, we used count just to count the returned results. Let's say we're interested in what's the average tomato rating of movies with Scarlett Johansson. Change into tomatoes, the average tomato rating of movies that star Scarlett Johansson. So we're interested in the T rating column in this case. And let's see if I can spell her last name correctly. I think I can. So the average tomato rating of movies that feature Scarlett Johansson or star Scarlett Johansson is 83. Let's say we want to know what the best movie in terms of tomato rating that Robert Downey was in. And let me just back up here. So which one of these keywords do you think will give us that answer, the best movie in terms of T rating that Robert Downey was in? So let's give it a shot and see if you're correct. So I'm going to select the max T rating. Okay, and here I'm going to get the Robert Downey ones. And the max T rating is 94. And we learned one other way of getting this, and I'm wondering if you know how to do that. Remember, let's, in this case, get the movie and the T rating. Okay, now do you remember or do you have an idea of what it could possibly be? Well, we can order by the T rating, descending, and we can just limit it to the top one. And there we get the Avengers Endgame B94. Let's learn one more thing, which is group by, and the query we'll use to examine this will be how many cities are in each state of the United States. At least in our database, there's a bazillion cities in each state, but as far as our database concerns, how many cities are there representing each state? So here I am in the world database, and let's do this. So I want the name of the state, so that's district. I want to count how many cities there are, so I'm just going to do that splat from city, and I only want cities in the United States. Okay, now here's the interesting thing. So we don't want to, this count here, we don't want to count all the cities in the database. What we first want to do is group the results by each state. So we're going to have a list of all the cities in one state and a list of the cities in another, and then within each group, we're going to count them. So we want to make some groups. And so we're just going to say group by, and then what we want to group by, in this case, those districts. And there we get the results. Let's say I want the results in alphabetical order by the name of the state. That should be pretty easy to do. So I can just say order by district. And here I get the results ordered by the state name. Instead, let's say I want the results ordered by how many cities there are. So the state with the highest number of cities should appear first. Let me just up arrow. So instead of order by district, I'm going to order by that count that we did. So here I'm getting all the states that only have one city in the database. And I want, let's say, the highest number first. That's easy to do. So order by count and descending. So here, California has the most cities in the database, Texas, Florida, Virginia, Colorado, and on and on. Cool. Now let's say I'm interested in how many movies each actor was in. Again, just a slight variation of what we just did, so this should be fairly easy. So the total number of movies each actor was in, and let's say I want to order it in that way of reverse order. So I want to select the first name, last name, so here's where I want to do that group by. And in this case, I want to group by the entire name. So it's going to be first name, last name. And I want to order by that count descending. So here I get the results. So these Scarlett Johansson, Gwyneth Paltrow, Robert Downing, they've all been involved, and Samuel L. Jackson all have 6 entries in our database. It shows you how small our database is, but at least we're getting the results that we wanted. Let's say we want the average tomato rating for each actor. Again, that should just be a very slight variation of what we just did. In fact, let me just up arrow there. So instead of count here, I want the average tomato rating of each actor. So by that I mean, if we look at all the 6 movies that Scarlett Johansson was in, if we average the tomato ratings of all those movies, what is that tomato rating? So here I want to do an average of the T rating. And I don't want to order by count anymore. I want to order by that average T rating descending. And you see that problem we have of some entries being null, so we'd like to get rid of those, but we get some good results as well. How do we get rid of those nulls? Super easy. Where T rating is not null. And we get some nice results. So let's look at those syntactic sugar things I mentioned. So in, between, and not. Again, these don't add any power. They don't allow us to generate additional queries that we couldn't with what we know so far, but they just make writing those queries a lot easier. So let's say we're interested in an alphabetical list of cities and their populations that are in Texas, Nevada, and Arizona. So let me just memorize this query. Alphabetical list of cities, populations that are in Texas, Nevada, and Arizona. Okay, I think we got it. Alphabetical list of cities that are in Texas, Arizona, and Nevada. So let's say I want the name of the city. Let's go with population too. I don't remember what it asked for, but let's go with population. So Texas, This is from our first video. I think we should know how to do this. So select the name of the city and the population from that city table where the district is Texas, or the district is Nevada, or the district is Arizona. And there we get a list of all the cities that match those. Oh, I think it said alphabetical list, so let me fix that. And there we have it. So an alphabetical list of the cities that are in those states. That's fairly lengthy, as we see here, right? So we had to have those multiple ors. So there's an easier way, which I'm going to show you, and that's the use of that in. So name, population, where, and then district. And then I can say in, and then just give it a list of things, of values that it could have. So the district can be Texas, can be, let me just go to the new line, Arizona, and Nevada. And there we get the same result. So it's another way of doing that query. So you can see that that's what we have with that in command. So we just say the column name in, and then we list, have a list in parentheses of all the values that are allowed. And that's, it doesn't say that much space, so it's another alternative of doing stuff. Okay, cool. Suppose we want cities and their populations that are in Texas and whose population is between 100,000 and 200,000. So again, we know already how to do this. Let me just do that entry again. So we want cities in Texas, the name and the population. And the population needs to be between 100 and 200,000 people. So between 100, and I'll just order it by population. So there we get 14 results. And we know how to do this, but there's an alternative that may be easier to type. I'm not really sure in this case, but let me just show you it. So it's select name, population. It starts off the same. And here I can use this keyword between. So I want the population to be between 100,000 and 200,000. Okay, let's see if we get the same result. So we get Wichita Falls on top and followed by Lubbock at the very bottom. And you see we get the exact same result. So this is just another way of writing the same query where we can use between. So we learned in, a shortcut for having a lot of ors in a row, and we learned this between. So suppose we want to know how many cities are there in the continental U.S., meaning let's exclude Alaska and Hawaii from our data. So let's do that. So we want to know how many cities there are. So for that, we're going to use count from city where and we don't want Alaska or Hawaii. And for this, I'm going to say not, because we don't want them. So we're introducing this word not, so we can preface it, and we're using something we just learned, which was in. So there are 272 cities in our database that are in the continental United States. So we've just seen the use of some syntactic sugar things that we don't need but really make writing queries a little bit easier. We learned in, between, and not. Let's go back to a query we already did, or a real similar query to what we already did. Let's say we want the top 5 in terms of population cities in the U.S., so the city, state, and population. And we should be able to do this almost in our sleep, hopefully, but I'll probably make a mistake. Select, help me out if I do. Select the name, population, from city, where, country code. Order by population, descending, limit 5. So select the name and the population from the city table, where the country is the USA. We're ordering by population, descending, and we're limiting the results to 5. Oh, let's say I think I asked for the name, the state name too. So let me get that in our thing. So select name, let me order that. So I'm going to add district here. Select name, district, population from city. Okay, it's all the same. And there I get the results. Now suppose I like the results, but I'm sort of unhappy with the names of the columns. So this one column has name on it, but I'd like it to be the word city. And instead of district here, that sounds kind of wonky. Let's say I want to use the word state. So I want to kind of rename these columns. And I'd like to show you how to do that. So let me start fresh. So here I'm typing in the name of the original column in the database, which in this case is name. And now I'm going to say as and give it the alias of what I wanted to see it in the results. So I want to see that as the word city. The next column is district in the database, but I want to see it in the results as the word state. And finally, I just want population. So here I've given some aliases. So I'm using this as command. Select name as city. So it's going to be appearing as city. District as state. So it's going to be showing up as state. And I've got the semicolon. And there we have it. So we have the city column and the state column. An alternative to this syntax, which is explicit because we use that word as, is we in fact can leave out that word as. We can just say select name space city and district space state. So the as is optional. Maybe it adds a little bit of clarity to what we're doing, but we don't need it. So this will be identical, as you can see here. So we are just renaming columns city and state. Suppose we're interested in a query we did before, like the average tomato rating of each actor in the database. And I guess I could up arrow a bunch of times to get that, but I think we can figure it out. So here I'm changing into tomatoes. We do select first name, last name, where T rating is not null. All right, I think this is reasonably good. So there they are. Uma Thurman has the worst tomato rating, but let me get it the reverse order, as we seem to like that. Okay, and now we're getting back to this result. But let's say I don't want this column to be named average. I want it to be, let's say, the whole word average tomato rating, or the whole phrase. That is, again, super easy to do. So I'm backing up and backing up and backing up because I'm lazy, I guess. I don't want to type it again. And here I can say as average tomato rating. So you see that column has been renamed average tomato rating. Now there's one thing I probably should have mentioned in some video, a bunch of videos ago, and how to handle single quotes. So for this, I'm going to demo using this query. What I want to know all the movies that have an apostrophe in the title of the movie. So how do we do that? So here's the rub, and let me just embiggen this a bit. So when we do a where clause, like movie equals, that what we're searching for is bounded by single quotes, right? So if we're looking for Avengers, it's going to be in single quotes. But if we're looking for Avenger apostrophe S, you see that the string ends right here, right? So we get that apostrophe in Avengers to be interpreted as the end of the string, and then we have this stuff left over, this S apostrophe. So that obviously doesn't work. we'd have the same problems with an insert command. So if we insert blah, 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 and we're starting to insert something, if we have a McSweeney or something, McCool, let's say, that doesn't work because we have this here is being interpreted as the end of the string, and then we have this cool apostrophe left over. So we need to escape this, or tell the system that please interpret this as just a plain old ordinary character, not the end of the string. And a super easy thing to do that, you just use 2 quotes. And that's how you do that. So let's see how that works in real life. So I want to know movies that have an apostrophe in the title. So select movie from actors, where movie, and here we're using our memory of what happened in the previous video. We're going to use like here, and we're going to have that wildcard character. So somewhere in there, there's going to be an apostrophe, and we need to escape it with a double quote, single quote. So this is saying, so find a movie that has a single apostrophe in it somewhere in the string. And we get that result. So there you have it. Just some extra stuff we can do, some queries we can use for single tables. So we've learned how to arrange results in a particular order, just using, and that's pretty trivial because we just say order by. We learned how to limit the number of rows returned in a result. Again, that's super, super easy. We just use that limit command. We've learned some summary statistics. Those are medium obvious. There's average and count. We learned how to group things. That's a little trickier, but if you experiment with them a bit, you'll learn it expertly. Column aliases, not a problem. You just say a column name as, give it some name as how you want to appear in the results. And then we learn some syntactic sugar things we can do like between, not, and in. So that's it for this video. I hope it was helpful. See you in the next one.